The idea for the Highground was actually born on December 18, 1965, on a battlefield in Vietnam. 24-year-old Tom Miller was holding in his arms his good friend and buddy, 22-year-old Jack Swender. Jack was unconscious and bleeding from a large piece of shrapnel that had torn his throat and severed his jugular vein. As Jack lay dying in Tom's arms, Tom made a silent promise to himself and to Jack that this terrible loss and great sacrifice would not be given in vain.
My name is Billy Buss from Thorpe, Wisconsin. I served in the Army as an infantryman in Vietnam. The statue behind us is the Native American, made their own memorial, and somehow Wisconsin was lucky enough to be the home of it.
Dedicated in 1995, the National Native American Vietnam Veterans Memorial is the first national memorial to come to the Highground. Mounted on a 10-ton piece of red granite symbolizing the blood that was shed, the sculpture depicts an American Indian soldier in jungle fatigues, holding a rifle in one hand and an eagle feather staff in the other. At the base is a circle of white stones depicting a field of honor. The names of all American Indians in North America who died as a result of the Vietnam War are etched into the black granite base, which skirts the entirety of the statue. To complete the tribute, the tribal affiliations of each warrior will be etched into the granite at a future date.
My name is Mike Kessling, and I retired after 28 years in the Army. And I was a combat engineer, and I retired at the rank of major. I'm representing the Korean War and Korean Veterans Tribute, and it's an artist's concept of how to recognize the Korean War veterans. The Korean War veterans have chosen the black granite legacy stone for their special stone. We have 4 colors of stones here at the park. The black are the Korean War. The artist that designed the Korean War tribute chose to use the center of the Korean flag, the yin-yang, with the rice paddy on the right side and the pool of water on the left. And the pool of water is for life of the rice paddy as well as the Korean Peninsula. He chose 3 bronze statues. The first statue represents a soldier or service member wiping the sweat from his brow because the average daily temperature was 100 degrees above zero. The far bronze statue was the same service member in his winter gear because the average daily temperature was minus 40 degrees. The center statue shows the service member helping his buddy off the battlefield. The black plaques go around the outside of the yin-yang on both sides, and now they're starting to go around the base. And it's not limited to Korean War veterans, it's limited to veterans of Korea. The Korean War is still going on today, some 68 and a half years later, because it's still a truce. It's America's longest war. There's one special plaque here. One Korean War veteran chose to put himself between the enemy and his unit and paid the price. His name is Einar Ingman, and the Medal of Honor Society chose to put his picture of the day President Eisenhower presented him with the Medal of Honor. So his picture of Einar Ingman is on his plaque, the only plaque that we have that way in the park today.
Over the course of 4 years, they developed the concept of the tribute, received the approval and support of the Highground's Board of Directors, held a design contest, commissioned the designer, raised over $200,000, and built the tribute. La Crosse resident and well-known snow sculptor Michael Martino won the design contest. Michael placed the figures on granite slabs shaped like the peninsula of Korea in the midst of the yin-yang circle, the symbol of the South Korean flag. Water surrounds the peninsula, emphasizing the distance these men are from home, friends, and family. Nearby, he added recipes of rice paddies. The walls of the rice paddies hold the stones honoring men and women who served their families and friends. Along the rim of the circle, engraved by black granite plaques, offer visitors a short history of Korea from 1950 to 1953.
Gleiban, KLABON, United States Marine Corps, active duty 1964 to 1968. I was at Fragments, the Vietnam Memorial, and I also did the Gold Star and Legacy Stones. Okay, the Legacy Stones we lay from April through October, and it's an honor stone for veterans. That for veterans or non-veterans, you do not have to be even from the state of Wisconsin. You do not have to be a veteran. You don't even have to be from the United States. We actually laid a stone last year from a Vietnam vet that was from Australia, and was actually an Australian Army that served in Vietnam. Fragments is the Vietnam Memorial. is 31 years old. Last year we had the 30th anniversary of it. It's honoring Vietnam vets, and it's the only memorial that is not signed here. Bob Kuzak, that designed it, said that it was signed by all the tears and the blood that was lost through the years in Vietnam. There is 1,244 names on that memorial. That is the number of Wisconsin veterans that were KIA or MIA in Vietnam.
The view is 1/2 million acres of Wisconsin's glacial moraine. A fitting site for the Wisconsin Vietnam Veterans Tribute is entitled Fragments, and you'll notice that not one of the figures is complete. They all flow into one, and much like in war, are dependent on each other and strengthen each other. It is set inside of a typical Native American burial mound design, which reminds us not to bury the service and sacrifice of our veterans. This is the first veterans tribute to the U.S. to include a woman in the statue. She is wearing a helmet to show that she's at risk. She bears the weight of the names of all the Wisconsin service personnel who gave their lives in Vietnam. The names are etched onto bronze bundles which are interspersed with wind chimes. If you were to count the names in the bundles, you would find 1,211 and then add 33 for the machine in action and find 1,244 service personnel who gave their lives in Vietnam from Wisconsin. You will notice that the rifle in the background that is turned upside down, it is a sign that a medevac is needed, a sign that it is not being used as a weapon. Woodland American Indian symbols are etched onto the rifle. Also embedded in the rifle is a piece of orange-stained glass. This is a reminder of Agent Orange and other toxic chemicals that were used in Vietnam. Many of our servicemen and women gave their lives after a result of their exposure to toxic chemicals during their service, and many of their children have birth defects as a result of their parents' exposure. The designer of the tribute, Bob Knuzik, refused to sign the statuary. During the dedication of the tribute in 1988, he said, "I could not sign it. It was signed by the men and women whose those names are embedded on the bundles in the back, by their families, by all the people during all those terrible years of the Vietnam War in the U.S. It was signed by the cost of things. It was signed by all of us."
The Gold Star is to honor the families that were killed in combat or killed in military service, and is to honor those families and their relatives.
And during the First World War, one or more blue stars were hung in the window signifying how many people from that home were in the service. If a person died, the blue star was replaced with a gold star. The American Gold Star Mothers group was chartered in 1929 and continues today because of the bond of mutual love, sympathy, and support of the many loyal, capable, and patriotic mothers who, while sharing their grief and their pride, have channeled their time, efforts, and gifts to lessening the pain of others. At the Highground, the Gold Star honors all those families who not only lost a member as a result of their service, but those who support their loved ones when they came home. We know that many veterans gave every day of the rest of their lives as a result of their service. The Gold Star honors all family members who support them. Included in the tribute is earth brought to the Highground from the gardens, homes, and other places from where families last saw their loved ones alive.
Gary Wyro, Spec 5, U.S. Army, 1968 to 1970. I was a trained military policeman, but true to the Army, as soon as I was assigned to a regular unit, I was assigned to personnel. I became a personnel clerk. I was assigned to the meditation garden. And there are 4 parts of the meditation garden. There's a prayer stone, which says, kneel, pray, heal. And heal is about the major areas that we emphasize at the Highground, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And we want to give counseling and booklets to anybody that may be suffering from that. We also had the Fountain of Tears, wherein I explained about the battle cross that the soldier has his hand on, and how his tears flow down to the family who lost their family member, and how she is holding a folded flag presented in his honor at his funeral.
The meditation garden has 4 rooms. The prayer stone is 4 foot wide by 8 inch deep, red granite stone inscribed with the words, kneel, pray, heal. Fountain of Tears reminds us the heartbreaking loss of loved ones. The GI is standing in front of a large teardrop wearing a poncho and leaning into the wind. He is resting his hand on his buddy's helmet that is placed on an impaled M16 rifle. In his hands are his buddy's dog tags. His tears are the genesis for the teardrops. The teardrops flow through the stream bed under the bridge into the pond. Sitting on the edge of the pond is the widow and child of the deceased GI. They are connected by the tiers, but separate by the bridge. A Gold Star family sponsored the sculpture in memory of their son who died in Iraq. 7 doves were released at his funeral, and 7 doves rose from their earthly ties to soar towards the heavens in this memorial.
Jeff Adams. I am one of the associate principals here at the high school. My official duties was a combat signaler, which simply means I was the radio man, and assigned to the company was a combat engineering company.
Bender, food service director for the Tomah School District. I was in food service, so all 4 years I spent in Mess Hall 521, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Marine Corps.
My name is Nikki Pope, and I am an elementary principal in the Tomah Area School District. I was an electrician. I was a sergeant in the United States Army.
My name is Sergeant First Class Cott. Currently, right now, I'm a 31 Bravo, which is military police in United States Army.
My name is Dan Erickson. I'm in the transportation department. This is my 25th year of driving school bus. At one time, I was the transportation supervisor, and I was also a licensed CDL examiner for the state of Wisconsin. What did I do in the military? That was in the time frame when the draft was still on. So I received my draft notice when I was 20 years old. I took that draft notice to the Navy recruiter, who gladly accepted it. And so that was in 1965. So I went into the Navy and went to school for hospital corpsman. And that's what I was throughout my Navy enlistment. But during Vietnam, I was assigned to the Marine Corps. So I served in Vietnam as a hospital corpsman assigned to the 1st Battalion, 26th Marines.
I had always wanted to be in the military. When I was growing up, back then it was all the G.I. Joe stuff. But I just always had a fascination with the military and that line of work, I guess. Since the junior high school, when I enlisted in the National Guard with the intentions of going in full time. And I think just going through my basic training between my senior year and then after my senior year going to my radio communication school, I think that's when it kind of things changed. I wanted to just go to college at that point.
It was fun. I mean, every day was different. The hours were long. We spent a lot of time coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning and working until 10 o'clock at night. The cool thing is that in food service, you work shifts where you would typically get a day off after working a day and a half, and then you would end up getting a couple weekends off every month too. So,
what drove you to enlist in the military?
The movie Under Siege with Steven Seagal, because he was a Navy SEAL and a chef on the ship, and when somebody tried taking over the ship, he took them all out. So that's really got me interested in joining the military and being in food service. Ironically, I wasn't a Navy SEAL or any special forces, I was just a cook.
Probably most was to help with my education and continue that. My dad was in the service, and so I thought that I would give back to my country as well.
When I was 17 years old in high school, I knew at that point, working on a dairy farm, I wasn't gonna go to college, didn't want to do any of the trades, so I decided to enlist in the Army, thinking I was gonna spend 4 years and then get out. So my initial plan was I had a 4-year contract, infantryman when I joined, and I was gonna do my 4-year contract and then get out and go back, do college or do something else, but instead I started a family and decided to re-enlist and stay in. So I actually just moved back to Wisconsin. I was actually just stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where average day there, you're waking up 5:30 and you're not home until like 1900 at night. Pretty much nonstop. The op tempo is really high there. We're airborne qualified there, so we're jumping on planes and doing stuff like that. So it's very long days. But now here, we do something that's called or OCTs, observers, coaches, and trainers. So here it's a little slower, just due to the fact that mainly what we do is we train reservists, and therefore, since it's so cold up here in the wintertime, mainly the reservists come in the summertime. It's their busy season. So our off-season months, we're doing more like partnership trainings and a lot more time with family.
I enjoyed the military. In fact, I wanted to re-enlist, but at that time, I was part of the huge buildup for Vietnam, and roughly 4 years later, I was part of the drawdown already. So while I wanted to re-enlist, the Navy had other plans. So what happened was when I got out of the Navy Reserve, then I joined the Army Reserve. The unit that I joined was the 44th General Hospital. They were headquartered out of Madison. but they trained in various locations throughout the state of Wisconsin, and one of them was the Tomah VA. So I joined them and participated in the Army Reserve up through 1993 and was activated for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I didn't go to the theater, but I did go to Landstuhl, Germany, which was an Army regional medical center that we enhanced from a 300-bed facility to a 1,000-bed facility in anticipation of many casualties, victims, wounded in the Persian Gulf War. Thankfully, that didn't happen. That war was very brief, and we didn't have the number of casualties that we were prepared for, which is a good thing.
It just gave me a lot more confidence in who I am, the stuff that I am capable of doing. You know, kind of one of those things you put your mind to it, you can do just about anything. And that's pretty much what you have to have when you go into the military, because you don't think you can do half the stuff that they force you to do, but you find out you can do it. So I think that changed me a lot for the better. Just gave me a lot more confidence in who I am. Gave me pride in the fact that I served and all the people that I served with. It's almost like a second family at that point.
What are some skills you learned in the military?
Perseverance, ability to overcome just about anything you put your mind to. Confidence, loyalty, friendship. I don't know if that's a skill or not, but I mean, the tangible skill that you learn, your combat training, your military, radio training, those types of things are there, but it's all those intangibles that you don't really get trained on when you're in your military. It's, how to be organized, how to be self-sufficient, how to work together as a team, all those things that comes with the duty being in the military.
It actually prepared me for moving on to the civilian world, and I wouldn't be doing right now what I'm doing if it wasn't for my service in the military.
Oh, lots of skills. The availability to travel and see different countries, meet new people, the ability to recognize that your attitude is what really changes whatever environment you're in. So whether you're in a foxhole or doing a job you don't like or dealing with people that may not be very kind, how you approach it and your attitude was probably the number one thing I got out of the military.
Some skills you learn in the military is going all the way back from basic training when you first go, from being a civilian to being in the military. You learn a lot of structure, a lot of responsibility, and then as you start moving up in the ranks in the military, you learn a lot of leadership skills. You have to be responsible for multiple different people. You gotta have a good head on your own shoulders, because you literally have the lives of other people in your hands. Such as some of the basic skills that you'll learn.
So how did my life change as a result of the military? It gave me a greater foundation for the values that the United States of America stands for. It is the greatest nation that this world has ever known. I think there are a number of citizens who don't hold that view in today's society, but for me, it enhanced my great esteem for this United States of America. There is none better, hasn't been, and I don't see a projection to have another country displace the United States for its values.
To honor those that served, I think that's what it really just comes down to it. There has been so many men and women that have served over generations of time. They are part of an elite group of people. Not everybody wants to go in the military, not everybody can get into the military. So those that do and then serve, protecting the nation and the nation's interests around the world, I think it's important to recognize that, to make sure that they feel that what they've done is revered and honored and they are somebody special.
It's important to honor all of the men and women who have served this country, to protect us and to give us the freedoms that we currently have. And I realize that there are other countries that have freedom, and it's not something that is completely unique to us, but the one thing that I think we take for granted, many of us, is to realize what we do have, we should be grateful for.
Veterans Day is important because countless men and women have and continue to give sacrifices, and their families continue to sacrifice for the freedoms that we sometimes take advantage of every single day. So having an opportunity to thank them for their service and pay tribute to them is something that should not go unrecognized.
So for me personally, Veterans Day I think is important, is not really to recognize, yes, we should recognize the people who are currently in, the current veterans from the previous wars, but our greatest generation is World War II vets. And a lot of those guys are, we only have a couple left. And I think truly right now, those are the guys who deserve all the appreciation. A lot of military veterans actually don't even want to be recognized, but we do need to recognize them for the fact that it's showing their dedication to our country and the sacrifices that not only them but their families had to endure throughout the multiple wars that we've been involved in.
Well, with the all-volunteer military, it may seem hard to believe, but of those citizens today, less than 0.5% serve in the military. That's not a whole lot of people when you're talking about over 300 million people in our country who are serving the military to keep this country free. Now, I'm not faulting them, I'm just simply saying that's not very many people who are fighting for freedom, not only our freedom, but freedom throughout the world. So Veterans Day to me is extremely important for those of us who have served in the military and for those who did not serve in the military, but realize the value of those who did. You've heard the term probably often, freedom is not free. It sounds cliche, but there's a great amount of truth to that. Someone has fought and died for each of our freedoms, and it will continue to be that way throughout the course of civilization, in my view. So to honor those who have served, to be appreciative of their service, I think Veterans Day is extremely important.
Think deeply on it, because it's not about the money, it's not about the GI Bill and the money for college and stuff like that. When I joined, there wasn't even the inkling that you would serve overseas in a war or a combat duty, but that had changed a lot in today's society. You need to know that you're going in there to protect those that can't protect themselves, and that's the duty of the military, is protect the nation and protect those that just cannot protect themselves. And that may mean serving overseas in some sort of war-related or conflict-related mission. Everything else is easy to do, but that can be something they don't normally think about. And I think that's the important thing they need to understand, that you're just not going in to be in the military, you're going in there knowing that you want to serve and protect these people.
It's worth it. It's worth going into the military. It's a great service to your country. It teaches you a lot of life skills. And for me, I got to use the GI Bill and it paid for college. So that was a huge benefit for me.
It was a decision that I definitely don't regret. It was probably the best one I've ever made. It definitely laid the groundwork for everything that I've done after that point. If you can dedicate a few years of your life to enlist and join the service, I think that you will have a lifetime of benefits after that.
If anyone's thinking about joining, or for this day and age, one of the biggest things is you're going to meet a million different people if you join the Army. You can get out of the small town that you're in or wherever you may grow up, but everybody's different, come from all different facets of life. So you got to be capable of being able to understand other people, be fair to other people, and be able to work as a team. So I'd say is if you have drive, motivation, dedication, then join the Army. It makes you part of something, part of a bigger team. It's not just about yourself, it's about other people that are around you and bettering other people around you, which in turn will make yourself better.
You could tell this generation interested in the military something about it, what would you say?
Go for it. There's no greater honor, there truly isn't. And there are so many fields of training that one can go into, whether we are male or female. There are many opportunities, educational-wise, but also technical-wise. Training that you receive in the military, number one, it teaches teamwork. The military is not a me service. We work together. Each of us has our purpose. Each of us has our particular training that we need to carry out, and that's all done in conjunction with others. So it teaches teamwork, and it also teaches discipline, and I think most of us need that throughout our life. So I would encourage it.